Hey, hi everybody. So right now we're going to go over how to derive your figures for this class project. So the first thing I did was go to the class website, of course, and download the necessary, so you're seeing this, the necessary download. So the R code, as well as the example CSV. And the first thing I want to do is just check out what is going on with this code. So the first thing I'll do is get the file path for the example data to be able to read it into R. So for a Mac, I right click it and go to Get Info. My Get Info screen is already up, and right here under General, I highlight the where and select Copy as Path Name. Then I can just replace this part of the working code and start to run my script. All right, so I already have all of these files or all of these packages. So don't forget that if you don't have one of these, usually you're prompted when you start the R session, but if you're not, go ahead and you can come over here to packages and install like this and search for them. Or again, you can do the install code. But I'm just gonna load all of these packages, set my working directory, and read in the data. So you can see the structure of the data here. If we want to take a look at the top of the data, we can use the command head and data. Actually, right now, what I'm going to do is so that you have a better view of what's going on, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to sharing the R screen in particular. So we're just going to go right to R. So now hopefully this is showing up a little bit more clearly for you. So we changed our working directory, we read in our data, and now you can see what this data structure looks like. If you want to see the whole data sheet, you can also use the view data command, and that'll pop it up over here in this other window. But that's okay. Right now, we're just going to look through this. So if we just run through the code, we can see a couple of examples of what's going on. So this is just looking, this first set of code looks at publications through time. This next one should go ahead, ignore the warnings. It's been saying that forever, and create a map of where we're seeing our publications. And then the last one shows the various themes of our work. So that we coded. Now, this is where things kind of get funky. It's hard to, you can take a couple of different approaches to looking at your different themes, since papers often contain multiple themes. You can either create individual rows, like repeat that particular citation and list all of the different themes, or you could just pick a dominant theme for that paper. I kind of suggest picking a dominant theme. That way you don't have to renumber your citations. So let me show you what I mean. So let's look again at the top of our data. Look and see what it looks like. Notice this number column right here. That I've added. And essentially, this just is the way that I'm telling R to add up the citations that correspond with different things. So you may have multiple, if you have multiple citations, but you only want to count it once, like in other words, if you repeat a citation multiple times for some reason, but you only want to count it once, when you are looking at, say, how many publications occur through years, you're going to want to label one of the citations with a 1 and the others with zeros. But of course, this would depend on what you're looking at. You'll do the same, that is the same concept for both the looking through time and the looking through the years of publication. But if you wanted to record all of the themes and all of the papers, you would need to kind of create those lines once and number them individually. Each one would have a 1, and then you would go back and relabel them as some of them having zeros so that you don't double count them in these two analyses. So I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but it's really not. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you very quickly how to modify the data that you've already started to create and download. All right, so let me back out of here and I'm going to share my screen once more. Go to the full desktop. There we go. So we have over here our code that we're interested in. And I can look at my example code, and here's code, and I haven't looked at this yet. I'm just kind of pulling it open, or sorry, here's a data sheet that I've made for a different analysis. It was actually for a literature review. So all I've done here is this is my CSV file that I downloaded from both Scopus and Web of Science. I combined it into one data sheet. And so it has these different titles along the top. So one thing, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my columns correspond to whatever the code is reading. So I can use my example data set to look at that. So first I have this column named citation ID. And so what I would do here is I can just copy it really. I can say, okay, just in case this is important, I'm not sure the code uses it, but let's just be safe. I'm going to change that column name to citation ID. Looking over, I've done this funky thing where I have country and states. I was looking at two different types of location. We're only going to look at a country level. That's what the code is set up for. So I'm going to ignore the state level here over here, and I'm going to change this because this is what I want to map to location. Awesome. Perfect. Alrighty, there we go. We need to also have a theme, a column theme. And for right now, since I kind of don't have that, it doesn't really correspond on, this is the closest, I'll go ahead and code this as theme. You'll have actual themes that you can use. And then I've already done this. So when I got this data originally, I didn't have a number column. It didn't have that at all. And so what I did is I just went down and I said number, and then for each individual citation that I wanted to code, I went ahead and added a 1 beside it. So we can look here, all of these should be individual. I think all of these are individual citations. So ignore what I've done over here. That is just indicating that I didn't end up including those, and I made that decision later on. So all you would do is create a column called number, and you would drag 1 all the way down. Again, say I wanted to code different themes for this particular paper, and maybe they had like different things that I wanted to code. So I was going to have duplicate columns here. What you would do is I would copy and paste all of this other stuff over down here to this particular row. So I duplicated here, but I don't want to duplicate it. I don't want to have this doubly represented in my data set for looking at, say, publications through time or space. So I would just add a 0 here by the second one, so they're not counted that way. Now, if I wanted to include all of the themes across all of the publications, multiple themes, I would probably run that analysis once for ease, and then I'd come back and switch this to a 1, 2 to look at those different themes. Otherwise, what I suggest would be just going ahead and picking the dominant theme, like the first thing that you really coded from that work, and that might kind of help you just simplify it, and you don't have to renumber. Either way is fine. Totally doesn't matter. Okay, so we have our number column, which is important. And the one thing I didn't say, but hopefully was obvious, you're only doing this for the literature that you reviewed. So you're gonna wanna go ahead, and this was something I decided last time, that you would just wanna go ahead and sort out, data sort. And if you have your reject column, I would choose that. You would choose the reject column. I'm just choosing something at random. And then you would delete anything that you rejected, because that's not what you want to look at. You want to describe the literature that you actually reviewed. Okay, so after we've done all of this stuff, I want it to look cuter, but it's kind of funky. After we've done all of this and we have the columns that we need, and the names agree completely with what is in your example, the other thing that we'll do is just make sure we have something for all the columns and it's clear. So this needs to be one entry all the way down. You don't want to have like multiple dates or weird symbols in there. Just look over your data set. Same for location. This can get a little funky because sometimes you have specific ways of coding those different locations. So you might have to kind of look up like, or take your best guess at first at what that location name would be. Notice that again, the spelling and the capitalization is important. And again, you're only going to want to have one location listed here. That's why we're just doing country level. That way it'll be easier for you to look at this and you don't have to get too confused. So that'll only include one location. And so then you basically kind of just do that and ensure that everything is working. Now, I will say that sometimes all of these funky terms and things can mess up analyses. So if you run this and you're having trouble, I would just delete all of the extra columns besides the ones that we're including here. Keep in mind too, that you're going to want to be doing this to a different, you don't want to do this to your final coding table. You want to retain that, but do this with a copy of that so that you're not doing anything crazy. Okay, so that is that. My, I'm not going to save this because I think I messed it up. My data was in the same place, so I have it in the same file, so I don't have to change my working directory again, but I can go ahead and some of my, that's not totally perfect, so I didn't go through and clean everything appropriately. So some of these are not going to work, but we can just show you how to now. Let's see, let me change to my R studio. There we go. I can show you just how to change this data. So I just go over, my file is named analyses master. I put this in, there I go. And I can just run this again, loading the data. And there we go. This is what it looks like. It's a little bit crazy, but this is with my actual data. And so I haven't even practiced this before, but it kind of works even with all those extra columns and funky things. The map of locations will not work because I saw that I had multiple columns for things, but we could just run it for fun. Yeah, locations not found. I must not have named it that. So anyway, but you would see, you would go through and kind of firm up a lot of these columns and make sure that they're clean to be able to run. And if you find that something like this doesn't run, then there's going to be some kind of misspelling, extra symbols, something weird in your data, and you just have to go through and clean it up. So I think that is basically it for this. Do tell me if you have any issues or troubles and we can try to figure them out. Okay, thanks a bunch. Bye.